Hey everyone, welcome to the channel where we love to talk about movies. Welcome especially if you're new. If you enjoy talking about movies and staying up to speed on what's in theaters and what's worth checking out, be sure to hit that subscribe button so you never miss a review. I usually post 2 or 3 per week, and caught up on most of the things that hit theaters. So with that, we have come to the end of another month. We're actually about a week into the next month already, but at the end of each month, I like to do just a movies monthly and kind of cover all the stuff that I watched the previous month. We do a tier list of all the movies I saw in theaters, and then I just talk about what I've been watching at home, and if I got any new Steelbooks, I just share those with you. So with that, we'll jump right on in. So this is a little late because the last Friday was the last day of the month, so it's taken me kind of the week to watch through everything that released last Friday. But now we can include it all in the tier list for everything that was released in the month of September. So with that, let's get into the tier list for September 2022. So these are all the movies that I saw in theaters. All of them were new with the exception of the re-release for Avatar. So I am including this even though I didn't do an individual review for it. But for all these you can check out the full review on the 2022 movie reviews playlist. But this will just be kind of a brief recap of my thoughts on the film and what I thought of them. So actually, with that, we got to make an edit here. I'm creating a new category this month, and that's because I've been rethinking my tier system, and there's several things that I can't quite go to the great category on, is what I'm realizing, but I like them better than a B. But it's not one that I'd say, hey, this is a great movie, go check it out. But it's one that I really liked. And so we're creating this B plus category, which is a good film that I particularly liked and that it had something specially for me. So there were a few of those, and I think I went kind of different directions throughout the month, where I put maybe one or two in the A category and one in the B, and it just made me realize I kind of wanted to have another tier in there. So with that, let's get started. So the first one up is Honk for Jesus Save Your Soul. This one was definitely a solid B. It was a good film that was funny throughout, and I thought had a good story to tell. I don't know that it wasn't quite in the B plus category, but it's a solid film. I recommend checking it out if you're looking for something to watch. Next up, we have Brahmastra Part 1 Shiva. This, again, was a film that wasn't really on my radar, but I saw it was in theaters. What actually put it on my radar was the fact that it was getting released in IMAX 3D. And then when I got to the theater, there was a problem with the projector, so I only saw it in 2D. But it was a fun film. I haven't seen too many of the films that, like, non-English films. So it's movies like this that kind of make me a lot more open to watching them. So it was a little strange seeing like dance numbers interspersed with basically what was a Marvel film, but I thought it worked for the most part and I had a good time. So this again was a B. And if we can just get it to line up, it doesn't like to kind of click into place there. That's okay. So next up we have Barbarian. This was a new horror film. And I'm trying to think where I stood on it. I don't think it was quite to the level of great. I think it was very good. I think it takes a lot for me to say that a horror film was great. But this was definitely a solid B and one that I actually quite enjoyed. So I'm gonna put this one in the B plus category. I just liked some of the things that they did with the movie, and without getting into spoilers, we'll just kind of leave it at that. But I thought it was pretty clever for a horror film. I've been seeing a lot of them lately, so it definitely stood out over many of the others. Next up, we have Medieval. This was definitely just fine. It wasn't bad, but I was thoroughly unimpressed by the film. It's not one that I can say I recommend. We'll just kind of leave it at that. Next up, we have The Woman King. This was a great film. It had me considering putting it in the masterpiece category, but it just, like, thinking of other films that I have in that category, it didn't quite get to that level. But it was a great film. It's one that I think everybody should see, and that's what the A category is. A and above is something that I highly recommend. Even if you're not asking me for recommendations, I'll be like, hey, did you see The Woman King? Because that was a good film. So that, I know I've seen glimpses of the controversy online for it kind of glorifying the real life tribe that they use the name from, but to each their own. I don't really want to get into that. My take on it was this is a film. It's not being presented as history, and yeah, I just took it as a piece of entertainment. So that is, yeah, highly recommend The Woman King. Next up, we have Pearl. This is another horror film, and it's a prequel to X, which came out earlier this year. I liked X a lot more. This was interesting, and I liked that it was fairly different, but I thought it was good. I would maybe put it in the fine category, but what definitely elevates it is the like 9-minute, I think it's 9-minute monologue that the main character has, and I think like at least 5 minutes of it was a single take. So just for that alone, it deserves at least a B. But it was good for a horror film. Next up, we have God's Country. I think I initially gave this one an A, and I think that's before I kind of decided I wanted to create a new category for that. It was B+, because I think it's movies like this, although this is borderline great. I thought that Tandy Newton did a phenomenal job acting in it, but it definitely seems like a film a bit more for me, and I kind of, yeah, I think the A category I think is a little more like objectively great and not as reflective of my personal enjoyment for it. So I think my letter grades used to be very subjective in like how I felt coming out of the film, and I think that's good to still have, but for me to call something great, I feel like it needs to be more of a film for everybody that I'd actually recommend and not just recommend to somebody like myself. But this was definitely a B+. I did really like the film, and it was, I don't know, I liked the mood that it had on the day that I saw it. So it's kind of a yeah, dreary mood of a film, but it hit the spot that day. So next up, we have Don't Worry, Darling. I thought this was a great film. I know it got lower reviews online, but I thought the acting was really good. The cinematography was good. I liked the story. I liked what we got, and I thought the message of the film was good. So I don't know. I feel like because of everything else that's out there, I shouldn't put it in the A category. But I thought it was great. I stick with that one. That's what I originally gave it, and I think that remains in that category and doesn't just come down to the B+ category. So, Avatar. I did not see this in theaters when it originally released. I think I've seen the film once, maybe twice before, and that was just at home. So I was curious to go check it out in theaters and see how visually stunning it was on the big screen. The times I've seen it at home, I was thoroughly unimpressed by the story, and that remained to be the case. Because of that, it was hard to sit through, but the visuals are really astounding, especially for being a 13-year-old film. Like, the CGI still holds up. The 3D is, like, it's filmed in a way James Cameron actually understands how to make a movie 3D. Like, the action, even like the chase scenes, a lot of times you'll have a chase scene where the camera's behind the person and they're running into the screen. In Avatar, he has the character running out of the screen, and it's little things like that, and a lot of, like, the use of a lot of light and, like, glass really helps the 3D effect. So for the visuals and for the music especially, James Horner did a phenomenal job with that. I put this into the B category. Without that, it would be a solid C at best. I don't know. I don't think we need... The story just isn't all that interesting, in my opinion. We don't need more movies that have just a white savior complex, and this just is another movie like that. It's not that it, like, a lot of people are like, oh, like, just because it's been done before doesn't mean it's bad. I'm like, yeah, it's been done before, and it's not all that interesting of a story. So it's the fact that it has been done before and it's not interesting. It's a compound effect there. But to each their own. I'm glad that other people seem to like it a lot more than I do. And I am still curious to check out the sequel. I hope they get a better story. And yeah, we'll see what we get there. But next up we have Moon Age Daydream. That is a documentary about David Bowie, and I knew nothing about David Bowie going in, so it was an interesting film. I enjoyed it. I thought there was, a lot of interesting stuff that it covered, but it was also paced kind of poorly, in my opinion. So it was a B. It was good. I wouldn't say go out of your way to see it, but I thought it's worth the watch if you're looking for something to see. Next up, we have Confess Fletch. This again was a solid B. I actually really liked it. I think I initially gave it an A because I really liked the film. It was a lot of fun. I didn't really see any problems with it, but returning to this new ranking system, it's certainly not a great film. It just didn't do enough to get to that level, but it's one that I enjoyed, I think, a lot more than most, and it's solidly in that B plus category for me. See How They Run. This was a murder mystery that I thought was very, very run-of-the-mill. It was fine at the end of the day. It's not one that I'd recommend. I was pretty bored by it and not really invested, unfortunate to say. The Good House. This was a good film. I think I gave it a B, and I think that's when around that time, I think it was between See How They Run and The Good Place that I decided I wanted to get a B plus category, because I'm like, I know I gave Confess Fletch an A, but I really, thinking back, it really wasn't an A, but it's not quite a B. And so the Good House is another film like that, where I think it's a solid B. The acting's good, the story's good. It doesn't quite do anything to get to the level of great, but I really liked it. Next up, we have Smile. This was good for a horror film. I give it a solid B. I'm not huge on horror, so it's hard for a horror film to get into the B plus category. The fact that Barbarian is there, I think says a lot. But it's not bad. I thought there were several interesting things that the film did, and yeah, I think it made some interesting choices that worked for me, but they may not work for everybody. Next up, we have Bros. This is just it's a rom-com that I thought was a solid rom-com. I don't think it reinvented the wheel on what a rom-com is. I think it's good to get rom-coms not just about heterosexual couples. So that I thought was good, but kind of taking that out of it and judging it on its merits as a rom-com, I thought it was good. It didn't stand out to me like some of the others that we have. I think some of my favorite rom-coms, or earlier this year we had The Lost City. That's kind of a rom-com, but that was just a ton of fun. So this was fun, but it certainly didn't appeal to me a ton personally, although I felt like I could relate a lot with the main character. But it was an enjoyable time, and there's nothing wrong with that. I recommend it if you're looking for something to watch, but it didn't blow my socks off either. So, and then on the come up, I just saw this today actually, so this is pretty fresh in my mind. And this one's again a solid B. And I thought it did a lot it was just a good film that held my interest. Again, didn't do quite enough to get into the great category, and yeah, it's one I'd recommend if you're looking for something to watch. So I thought it was, I don't know, it was the sort of film that I liked. It has a lot more kind of serious subject matter and a little bit heavier of a film again, so like some of the others on this list. But I thought overall pretty good month for movies. I think the last month or two we've had a lot in the B and C category, so only having a couple C's I think is good. I like most movies. I wouldn't have a movie a YouTube channel if I didn't like movies, so most things are going to get into the B category, and then it takes a lot for it to just lose all my interest to go down to a C, but it takes quite a bit as well to bump up to the B plus and especially the A category. And masterpieces, those we don't get all that often. So I think a solid month for movies. I liked quite a bit of what we got, and we'll see what the next month has in store. For what I watched at home, I didn't get a whole lot in at home this month. There's several things that I'm watching, and I've seen several episodes of different things, but none of it wrapped up. We've got things like Rings of Power, House of the Dragon, She-Hulk, and Rick and Morty. I watched several episodes of all of those this month, but none of them wrapped up. So I think some of them wrap up next month, if not all of those. Most of them do, I think, anyway. And Andor started this last month too. So there's a lot of TV out right now, but I didn't. I wait till the end of the season to include it on this. So we just had a few movies, and then the Great British Baking Show, which was kind of fun to get into. It was just kind of a relaxing day in that got me looking for some reality TV, and it happened on this. So. Starting off, though, we have Shawshank Redemption, The Shawshank Redemption. I think this is an absolute masterpiece. I think everybody must see this film. It's one of my favorite films of all time. It's not quite on my top 10, I don't think, but it's very close, and it's one that I consider putting in my top 10. But it was nice. I was able to share this film and as well as The Prestige with a friend who hadn't seen either. And these two being some of my favorite movies, it was nice not only to rewatch the films, but share them with somebody who hadn't seen them before. So next up we have The Last Duel. This I think I originally had... I have it very high on my list from last year. I think it's like my third favorite film from last year. And on the rewatch, I think going into the rewatch, I would have labeled this a masterpiece. On the rewatch, I think I just put it in the great category. I think it is really, really good, but it's not quite on the level of a masterpiece. Maybe that's because I rewatched it in parts. Like I think I watched one act one day, and then I watched acts 2 and 3 in 2 separate sittings on the following day. And I think it doesn't have quite as much of a rewatchability, but I do think it's really good. I love the music for it. I think the acting is good. I did just feel kind of the repetitiveness of the story this time through. I did really appreciate it. I absolutely love this coming out of the theaters, and I liked that how they tell the story from different points of view, and you see different things or scenes play out slightly differently. But on rewatch, it did feel a little drawn out, but I do think it's really good. I really like the duel part of it. I thought that was filmed very well and just had a nice like gritty sort of look to it. The Great British Baking Show. This is a good show. I'm glad I happened upon this. I think I need to see more than one season if I were to bump it up anything greater than good, but I'm inclined to put this as a great show, even though I would not have thought so. I think it's great to see all the food that they bake on the show, and like the music just fits, and I like just the general tone. I especially like that the contestants are there, like they're supportive of each other and they're not super competitive. Like they want to see each other succeed, and they're upset for each other when their stuff doesn't like turn out. So I thought that was just really... I think it's a very wholesome show, and it's one that I recommend if you're looking for something not too serious to watch. And then lastly, we have The Prestige. This is in my top 10 films of all time. I think I need to rethink that list at this point because it's mostly franchise movies, and it's like this is what I grew up with, things like Lord of the Rings and Star Wars and Harry Potter. And like those have such a special place in my heart, but at this point in my life, I do think I prefer a little bit more the non-franchise things, or I just have to reevaluate. Like if I didn't grow up on this film, taking that aside, how much do I actually enjoy it now? But that being said, so like The Prestige being on that list where it's the only non-franchise movie in my top 10 right now, it's definitely a masterpiece, and it's one that I think everybody should see. I was surprised to learn that it's in like the 70% on Rotten Tomatoes. I don't really understand that, but I guess to each their own. I don't know. I love this movie. I love the tone that it has. I love the actors. And yeah, here again, it was a lot of fun to be able to share this with somebody who hadn't seen it before. So that's always a nice experience, and it had been a couple years since I watched it. So yeah, it was a good month for rewatching stuff at home. I didn't really get around to listening to any soundtracks this month, so that section is not in this movie's monthly as it normally is. But next up we have the Steelbooks section. So it was also a fairly slow month for Steelbooks. I think the last couple months I had quite a few Steelbooks come in. But this month I didn't order any like old Steelbooks or previously released Steelbooks, and then we got 2 new releases that I did pick up. So we'll go over those though. We have Thor: Love and Thunder. Very typical for the movie that it was. And we got Thor on the front and Jane on the back, or Lady Thor on the back. It's an interesting design. Maybe not my favorite, but I like that it's kind of different. And then the second one that we had was Lightyear. I do like this one quite a bit. Trying to not get the glare and get it in frame. So it's a little simplistic, but I don't know. I like the effect. I like fog a lot. It's just kind of it's a clean look. Not the most artistic. The back is pretty nice too, if I get that in frame. So a couple of nice Steelbooks. The probably not my favorite ever, but I do like both of them, and was happy to see the artwork when they released those. So those are the Steelbooks that I picked up this month. And then going on to our last section, what am I looking forward to next month? Well, I'm not aware of any or many TV shows that are coming out or like premiering next month. There's plenty wrapping up, and I'm loving a lot of the shows, but we'll get into those in the next Movies Monthly when those wrap up. But for movies, these are the main ones that I'm looking forward to. None of these are like top of my list of things that I'm looking forward to. I think ones from last month were definitely higher up, and I think November and December will have some bigger movies. But these ones do look pretty good. They're kind of different types. Black Adam, I'm looking forward to it because I am a superhero fan. I'm interested to see what this is, but I'm not super hopeful on this. I'm expecting this to be like a solid B, but I'm curious if it'll do something to get me to consider going higher than that. I've seen the trailer for Tildo in a couple of movies lately, and it actually looks like it'll be a pretty interesting film. And that one I'm probably looking forward to the most in the month. I think that'll be a really good film. And then Ticket to Paradise just looks like a pretty fun movie overall. I've seen the trailer several times now, and yeah, I think George Clooney and Julia Roberts have pretty good chemistry, and I think that'll just be a fun film to go check out. So those are the three that kind of stood out to me. Not like, again, none of them stand out a ton, but looking ahead to the next month, these are the ones that stand out the most. But if you're aware of any films coming out this month and you're excited for them, I'd love to hear in the comments below what you're looking forward to in the month of October. But with that concludes our Movies Monthly. A little bit shorter of a one this month since I didn't watch too much at home and didn't listen to soundtracks, but that's perfectly okay. I saw a lot of movies in theaters though. I think the count was 16. I think my highest month before this was like 15. So quite a few movies and a pretty solid showing. But let me know if you had a favorite movie this last month. Definitely top of my list was The Woman King. I think that's going to be great come award season. That's going to get a lot of stuff. But yeah, share your thoughts in the comments below. And as always, like and subscribe if you enjoy these videos. And thanks for watching, and we'll catch you in the next video.